it's 12 o'clock. And so I think that our fearless leader is Professor Don Saucier is going to join us shortly, but we were just talking about, oh, there he is. I'm gonna be quiet and let Don Saucier start us out. Or is he, hi Don. Is he frozen? Okay.
I think he's frozen.
I think he's frozen. Okay, so we're just gonna go and move forward. Y'all can text. Hey Mary, it's good to see you. It's good to see so many of you on this call. Oh my goodness, Rebecca. Hi Rachel. All righty. Well, it's 12 o'clock and there is music happening in front of Anderson Hall. So we're gonna have some soundtrack to this little moment, and then I'm gonna mute and probably let Jody walk us through the first part of the website. But welcome to our first professional development session of the 2021-2022 academic year. Dawn, you're unfrozen now. Do you want to open? Let's see. Hey, Dawn. Okay, I don't know what's happening, but we're gonna chat about mindful returns. And so today in this session, we thought we would share a little bit of what the website looks like and get us started thinking about those, the toolkit and the 6 areas that we organize the toolkit. And again, I wanna, if you didn't get a chance to see the town hall last time, Jody, Sonia Luter, Don Saucier, Ashley Schiffer, Nolan Rankin, and I met over the summer to kind of put together to think about, right? What do we need as we come back into campus, as we return to campus after being, some of us, away for a really long time, and even those of us who've been on campus for a while doing our thing, there's an influx of people, right? More of us that are here on campus. And so what are the things that we are thinking about? What are the things that we want to be mindful of as we make this return? And so our six tools are sort of the communication tool, right, that we have, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as a tool to kind of be mindful in our return, empathy, considerations of mental health, physical health, and student success. And those 6 tools that we thought of, right, sort of encompass a lot of great resources across campus that we have. But today we want to go through some of the toolkit itself and show you some of it. But then we also thought we could have more of a workshop conversation for each of these areas, one at a time. I'm thinking about what are some of the strategies that you all use to incorporate mindfulness into this beginning moment of the semester, or maybe into your course design that you did over the summer, or as you see what we need moving into the future. And so if we could maybe jointly as a collaborative be mindful together about maybe some things we can add to this website in terms of strategies that you all may have, and then also just have a good conversation about what we find useful here in this toolkit and what we can use as we move forward, just peer to peer. So Jody, you want to walk us through a couple?
Let me first introduce myself, because I'm sure many of you aren't sure who I am. Jody Kaus, and I'm the director of Powercat Financial. And I'm not on the instructor side. I'm not a faculty member, but I kind of think of my role as like a clinical instructor. I do have my peer financial counselors that I train and oversee, and they give financial education and advice on campus. And so it's a student-driven program. So I have these students, and I just got to thinking over the summer, we're going to bring them back to campus, and we're going to expect a lot of different things from them. And for me as well, myself. And instead of just glossing over that moment in time and jumping back into things and acting as if we're back to normal, we really need to address that with each of them and with ourselves, and be honest and open and say, hey, I've been through a lot. I'm still actually going through a lot because of these different transitions, and make it really intentional, and understand that they are in a different position, every single student and faculty member, with handling these momentous changes that we've had to experience. And that's why we started talking about what does it mean to have a mindful return, and how can we really help support each other, ourselves, our students, our staff around that transition, and be the most successful we can in, becoming a better normal, a better campus, a better K-State. So anyway, this toolkit has been really exciting to see it come out of that. One of the things, if you'll just start with the communications area, this link here has a really helpful summary of some language that we put together, and Dr. Sonia Luter helped with this. But just this first paragraph here that I wrote was really that inner dialogue that I was thinking I would really appreciate hearing from others, and then also expressing to my own students about that beginning of the semester. So you may have already started your courses this week, and so you've already probably done that. Does anybody have an example of how they were able to begin that first day of class with their students, and how they kind of address that, what I'm calling the elephant in the room, that COVID has happened and we're now trying to return and start up a new semester? How did you all handle that? Anybody have any stories they want to share, or any examples?
I can share something.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, I just really addressed the fact that we aren't completely back to normal. And so I wasn't expecting that everyone was behaving as if we were. So that's really was my approach in my first days of classes, was just to let them know that we're all still in it, even though we are together, and that's great. We're we're still in it, and so the expectations are still that we are all struggling through it. So.
Right. And ourselves as faculty staff, we're at different levels with that too. I like to express that there are parts of being remote that I really appreciated, and that now being fully back in person has, created a little of anxiety in different areas for me, not necessarily even about COVID, but just about the type of energy sometimes it takes to work at that level, especially this week with all the things we have going on campus, and it being so hot for physical work. So anyway, yeah, that's great. Anybody else have anything?
We have some chat participation. Melissa Glasser, who doesn't have a microphone right now, so was saying that she asked her students if they had in person or online during the past years, to kind of address that in the beginning. And she was surprised that most of her first year students had been in person, while the sophomores and second, third, fourth years, etc., had often had 0 in-person classes, right? So thinking about what that means as we move forward in person is huge, right? How do we bring those folks with us?
Mm-hmm.
But I love the strategy of finding out where your students are. I think that is such a crucial component of the first days, the first week of class. But also because we, as Jody said, we're actually, it was not Jody, because as Jessica said, we're all still in it, right? This is going to be touching base throughout this semester is going to be crucial, and keeping those communications open.
Yeah, the atrophy of skills. I see that in the chat as another topic or situation that we're all working through. I even had atrophy of certain skills. When we started our first student meeting, there were certain things on the agenda that we used to do when we were in person. And we kind of had to drop those off when we went to remote. And it took me a while to kind of refresh or remember those things that we had done when we were in person that needed to be resumed. So yeah, it's really a lot.
Dr. Levitt, do you have something to add, Dr. Levitt?
Yeah, one of the things I teach 2 sections of Intro to Gender Studies and 1 section of social movements. And in my classes, all of my course policies are now based on students having a lot more trauma and having higher anxiety, mental health struggles being higher, but also physical disabilities being higher. So either having a disability or acquiring one during the semester. And so COVID and all of the impacts of COVID, whether that's loss of a loved one or having higher instances of domestic violence and sexual violence and toxic relationships. So everything is impacting what my course policies are in, I think, really beneficial ways, but it's imbuing all the parts of my class policies. So attendance policies are much more flexible and much more about telling students, you're going to miss class and things are going to happen. And when you're in a safe place to do so, let me know and we'll figure out how to get you caught up and get you taken care of. But the most important thing is your safety, both your mental health and your physical health. So really giving students permission to take care of themselves and let them know that their bodily and mental health come first, and that we can always figure out a way to get them access to the material and get them caught up. And that's a really important part of kind of training them for how to engage in coursework that I think is a really different paradigm shift for a lot of students that have been trained to push their bodies to like stay up late and like kind of hurt themselves to get things done and meet deadlines. So there's a kind of really training folks to think of their bodily and mental health safety as the priority. That's different.
Yeah, that touches on several things, and the empathy aspect of the toolkit is definitely what you're speaking on. That's great. Got lots of kudos there.
Yeah. So crucial to be careful of all of ourself, right, as we move forward in learning and in being, right. And I think that's such a crucial part of mindfulness.
Leslie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't explicitly tell my students, you know, oh, we're still in it. But I did do things the first days where, you know, we took walks. We went on a field trip. In my classes, that is part of what we do, but was very intentional about like, we're going to get up and move, and like physically engaging their bodies, just as a way to kind of, I don't know, maybe reestablish them here. I don't know what that was informed by, maybe just my own desire to like not be in a classroom and not be wearing a mask with everybody the first day, but
yeah, no, I don't know if you noticed, but the theme behind our mindful returns is nature. And so we have our stickers and we've got the Kanza, and then the theme on the page here is about the Kanza. And we, as soon as we saw this, we all kind of felt a little sense of relaxation. We were like, oh, that feels so good to see that image. And you're right. You know, research has shown that 5 minutes outdoors lifts all of our, you know, our minds. So that's excellent. Love it. Get your sticker too. If you don't have your stickers, you can get those from the TLC. So we've talked a little bit about some communication strategies and this kind of list of things that you could say or things you might not want to say. Those were provided by Dr. Sonia Luter. I think those are really helpful. The empathy aspect, mental health, you know, that's really a large part of what we're talking about, understanding the resources that we have available to us. The employee assistance program, the human capital live your best program, several different archived events from the TLC office. And then of course for students, Counseling Services has kind of rebranded, and now they're the Counseling and Psychological Services, or CAPS program. And I believe they just had an article in the K-State today this week about how we can connect students to their services and the ways that that can happen, and that it's not necessarily that students get an appointment with a counselor the first time. They are kind of assigned to a triaging session where they determine what the next best step might be for them. It might be group counseling, or it might be some other techniques. So that was really helpful to know how we can really connect students to those resources. Does anybody have any comments on this topic they want to share? And we have the new U at KSU. This is brand new. I always call it the Pinterest for well-being. So there's these tiles and there's subject matter and images, and then you can tag those images if you want to get back to them and read more about them in detail, or you can connect students or staff or faculty to those links in U at KSU. So I encourage you, if you haven't yet logged in and checked it out, that it's going to be a great new tool for all of us to use in the area of well-being.
I just had a quick comment I wanted to make here. Now that we're talking about the mental health resources at K-State, it's so wonderful to be a part of an institution that has so many wonderful services for students and faculty and instructors. But instead of just kind of a blanket statement, oh, we have resources available for you, kind of the idea behind Mindful Returns, and I think especially relevant for these resources, is it quite literally functions as a one-stop shop for instructors, for students, so they can see the specific resources we have, whether it's the counseling and psychological services, the care office, Office of Student Life. Again, instead of just kind of like a blanket statement that we have a lot of these services, kind of pointing them in the right direction, not just for students, but everyone on campus. And I think that's especially relevant for this pillar of our Mindful Returns toolkit.
Yeah, and thanks for pulling that all together. You both, you and Ashley made it a really great toolkit for everyone to quickly pull out those resources when they're needed. Anything here that anybody sees that they'd like to inquire about, or that they've got some good helpfulness? Project Waypoint. Oh yes, the faculty and staff via Lafine is able to go through Project Waypoint, and I have my green bandana. So once you go through the bandana training, you get one of these nice green bandanas, and then if you show it on your backpack, or others on campus know that you've received that important training to help understand students at risk, students with suicidal ideation or other situations, so you know how to handle those. Rachel, did you want to speak about your comment?
Sure. So in some of my first classes, I ask, what's working for you so far in the return to classes and what's not. And in one of my classes, students felt like the emphasis on the availability of counseling, and that kind of the emphasis that the return to kind of in-person and on-campus teaching, that students might need counseling or need to access counseling in order to make that possible, was ignoring their concerns about safety, and that we are sacrificing people who have underlying conditions and family members that have underlying conditions that make them more vulnerable to dying from COVID. And so the idea that we're sacrificing the most vulnerable among us, and that people of color and LGBT people are more likely to die of COVID, makes it so that there's a kind of tacit acceptance of certain populations are acceptably disposable. And so students were saying that they felt like the idea that, well, we'll just return and there's an acceptable number of people in our community that we can sacrifice, and that the objection to that as something that we accept as a community that is met with, well, there's counseling available if you have anxiety about that, gaslights them for the concern about this as a policy failure, and that we are willing to put the financial stability of the university or the state because of the legislature above the well-being of members of our community. And so students felt like they weren't being heard for their objection to who among us is being put at risk and potentially made kind of an acceptable sacrifice. And I felt like that was a really well articulated for the first week critique of structural violence. So I was like, well spotted, and feel like some of my readings might be a little too basic for you now. Oh, you're muted, Jody.
I said, yeah, that's diving real deep right off the bat, isn't it? Well, it's good conversations to have, and hopefully that we can all come together as a community and try to keep working on those important changes. I know it's difficult to make sure that your voices feel like your voice is being heard, and that all different perspectives are being addressed. The town halls, I think, have been interesting. I think I heard somebody mention that a lot of people are feeling comfortable doing chat with some really sensitive topics that they might not have felt like expressing in other venues. So those town halls have, I think, at least opened up some of those potential concerns. We'll see going forward how those concerns result in action, and I'm not at that level of administration to be able to comment, obviously, but all right. So physical health, did anybody make it over to the rec center anniversary event? They just had their big anniversary event, 100th anniversary, and we threw that on as a neat opportunity to re-engage. I've been enjoying our new community rec centers, which are free. Just have to go onto the Manhattan Parks and Rec website and register your name, and then you can walk in. And last night I took a cool air-conditioned walk around the track at 8 p.m. Even though it was still in the 90s, I think outside, I was able to get a little bit of that physical exercise, which helps reset your mind a lot of times, and taking advantage of those opportunities, I think, are really important. And I'm not sure if the Eisenhower Middle School Rec Center is open yet, but we'll soon have that in the Douglas Center rec as well in our communities. So that's wonderful. I think the last area that we haven't touched on yet are just student success topics, and that's something that you guys are really probably more experts in than I. Is there certain student success areas that you are wanting to collaborate or talk about with any of the rest of us? We have Rebecca with the First Generation Student Office with us today, and that's a big area of focus for our first gen students, making sure that they're supported with their success and thinking about what they might need differently. Tanya, any thoughts from you? Suzanne, you asked, how do we access the community rec centers? If you'll go to the Manhattan Parks and Rec Center website, you can look up their hours and find out, more about that. There's a link, I think, on that page then to go ahead and register with the Parks and Rec. Your name, basically, you just give them your name and your date of birth, and that way, when you walk into the rec center, there's a desk at the front, and they'll just ask for your name, and they'll check that you're in the system, and you're good to go. You don't have to have a card. You don't have to swipe. You don't have to do anything. Sign and release, but it's free. They just want to make sure that you are in the system. So it's pretty simple. And then they have pickleball, they have basketball courts, They have the tracks, and yeah, it's really nice. I can't hear you. You're on mute. Oh, she knows she's on mute, but she can't. Oh, her mouse is not working.
So if I could jump in, and I apologize y'all for joining late. I had all the tech issues. So I guess Tanya, tag, you're it on the tech issues. In terms of student success, this is something that is a horizontal goal, right? This is something that we're constantly working to in our teaching and our mentoring and our advising. And you'll see that the resources on here include the TLC Professional Development Series. And this is something you all made your way to today. And what we do is just kind of invite you to keep making your way back here on Wednesdays at noon. And if you can't make Wednesdays at noon, these events are archived. We'll have these archived on the TLC website that you'll be able to see that. So I just kind of want to say we've got a wonderful slate of events. And I'll make a reminder again at the end, but we have a wonderful slate of events this semester, spring semester shaping up with a wonderful slate of events there too. But student success is always our goal. And one of the things that I like at K-State is I think when we say that, we mean it. And I really appreciate all the efforts that all of you do in your teaching, your mentoring, your advising, your extension work, all of those kinds of things to help create an environment in which our students can learn well and learn safely in a very challenging situation we're all facing this fall. So I just wanted to kind of alert you to that as we progress.
Yes, going along those lines, I just wanted to reiterate, Jody, you posed the question about obviously first generation students. And I would think that, I think right now we're all in a different boat, but at the same time, we're all in the same boat because I think we are learning as we go along what does the new normal looks like. And so for some of us maybe different than others, right? So I think providing the students the flexibility and the spaces to express how they're transitioning back, I think it's really important. And because I think that wellness, emotional well-being, helping students navigate a system is all tied in with student success as well. But I was just reflecting on this yesterday with a colleague of mine on how some of us who are considered extroverts all of a sudden realize that maybe during the pandemic, we have become a little bit of introverts, right? And then we were talking about this, and I was telling her, yeah, I feel like an introvert, and because I've been coming to work, although I've been coming to work, but the past 2 days we've had such engagement, and I'm finding myself so exhausted at the end of the day, and I'm starting to think, how does the students make the transition to it, right? And are we providing them opportunities to reflect and to just be and make sense of how this change is happening with them? Because I think there's a lot of layers happening here and lots of different things that are impacting people that we probably want to just allow that opportunity for flexibility. And I think also as administrators and professors and student success practitioners, as we discover this new normal, communicate with one another and also collaborate with one another and find new ways to serve students.
Thank you for that. Did we lose Tanya? Did she have to log off and try to log on? Maybe. I think her mouse stopped working. Yeah, really, I think we just wanted to make sure that you had the information in front of you that we reviewed previously about the toolkit, the mindful returns, that you knew what all the resources were and why they were helpful, and then find out, are there any areas that we missed that we maybe could also add or include that maybe we did not provide as far as a toolkit? Maybe there's some gaps in resources that you would like to see or that you know about that we should also know.
Not so much resources, but I think one thing that's just important to highlight is to think about just having an open definition of what success is, and to know that success is going to be that what we call success is going to look different for all of our students. For some students, just like getting out of bed and getting to class is like a huge step, and that should be celebrated and encouraged. And so just kind of being able to, like we've all been talking about, doing these check-ins with our students, seeing where they're at, and kind of helping them to define what success looks like for them and figuring out the steps that they need to take to get there, rather than just like, this is what my bar of success is and I expect you to come to me.
Excellent point.
So,
Yeah.
and I apologize if I'm going over stuff that happened before I got here, but one of the things I was really excited about to talk about in today's session as well was ideas that you all have to help create a mindful return. So we have a lot of our ideas, and this is kind of just an extension of Jody's question as well, but what have you done so far in this first week, or what will you do in this first week to whatever that definition of success is for your students to support it? The things that you're doing, the structures that you're using. I'm just really kind of curious to kind of crowdsource some of this information as well. And perhaps we can end the screen share and go to the Brady Bunch gallery view to kind of see each other as we have these ideas and sharing.
One of the things that I've been doing in the last year is soliciting from students with each major assignment that they have for class, as we're getting closer to it and I start describing what the assignment is going to be, that we have kind of a roundtable discussion about what does successful completion of that assignment look like? What's important in completing that assignment? How do we want to develop it? And as part of that, I kind of have them help me create the rubric for how it's going to be evaluated ultimately. But I think that kind of opening up and giving some of that power back to the students of like, what are your goals in this class? What do you want to know? Because, this class isn't for my benefit. It's for the students to learn. And so getting to hear that feedback of why they're in the class, what they want to know, what they want to be able to do, helps me to structure my classes better for them. And then they have a better idea of kind of what they need to do to get their assignments done, rather than just, sitting, staring at their computer screen with a blank document open going, I don't know.
Andy, I think that's a wonderful personalization of the class and really nicely extends operationally what you're saying about each student having an individual definition for their own success. I love that. What are other ideas that people have or things that they've done? I see that one person in the chat said they reduced the number of assignments in their landscape architecture drawing studio to account for ongoing stressors. So that's streamlining and finding what's really essential for our students is important. So I love that idea as well.
I can use my clicker now. So I was just gonna circle back, if I might insert myself into the conversation again. I'm sorry about that. But I just wanted to circle back. I think that to what Dr. Levitt was saying earlier about students feeling gaslighted by, the sort of policy and like giving all these resources and feeling like, well, I'm getting all these resources, but you're not really considering the underlying issues here. I don't think students are alone in that feeling. I think that we are, faculty and staff are feeling the same, in the sense of like, you're expecting us to do what, in this situation that feels like it's worse than when we all pivoted to remote. So I think that I wanted to recognize that, and also to recognize that the strategies that we're all talking about, I mean, as faculty that are designing and redesigning and adjusting courses with students in mind, I mean, you're creating those structures in the absence of a kind of larger university structure for our students in those ways. And I think that's it's a powerful act, a powerful pedagogy to sort of, in the absence of sort of addressing what we're all going through head on, trying to kind of address it at the very least in the structures of our courses and in our interactions with our students, and hopefully in our interactions with each other as we embark in this work in our department meetings and unit meetings and how we treat each other as colleagues. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I wanted to acknowledge that what Dr. Levitt raised was heard, and yes, that's right. That's absolutely right. We're not doing enough. We're not being adequate about those underlying issues. And so I just wanted to say that, and I didn't want to leave this session on mindful returns without being mindful of like, what is it that we're reacting to? What is it that we're experiencing? And what I love about this horror that we're living through is that it really exacerbates, or it really brings to light some of the things that we should have been doing already in our classrooms, in our spaces of work. And hopefully we're thinking about what needs to move forward. So anyway, I just wanted to, I'll stop now so that we can get to all the great stuff in the chat, but I just wanted to say that out loud.
I want to point out that I think the idea of having students start out with what plant are you most fond of and why is an amazing way to do something really fun with course content. And I think doing those really cool connection activities with something that inspires them to think about the things that they're learning with you is really just a creative and innovative thing to do. So I just smiled when I read that, and I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, we mentioned sometimes there are good things that have come out of the pandemic, and remembering those good things and making a list of what are those good things that we have learned or developed or that have come out of this challenge. Oh, we've got a plant. I love it.
So Dr. Parath, if you would be interested, I would be curious about what those breathing techniques are and how to teach them with my students. So I don't know if that's putting you on the spot too much, but I'm absolutely curious. Okay, we have a YouTube link. Excellent. I'm going to watch that after because I think that's amazing. Thank you.
I have a lot of colleagues that started every single class last year with belly breath or with some other breathing technique, or even yoga poses, like get everybody stand up and do that. That would horrify me if I had to do that. Not the breathing. I love the breathing, obviously, but doing yoga. But I think it's such a great idea just to get people to like, even chair yoga, like doing the stretching it's so important.
This was over the summer, but I had master's students who took 2-week-long synchronous classes. And one morning before class started, we had someone come in and do chair yoga for us because we were so exhausted from sitting at the computer for so long. And we got really positive feedback about that. That's not something that I could ever facilitate, but it was really nice to have somebody who could do that for us.
I did chair yoga for myself yesterday, and the crackling and crinkling that happened in my back was so scary. It was like terrifying, but it's good to stretch in your chair. I also wanted to mention that a lot of the things that you all are talking about today in this session, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but in the Inside Higher Ed and in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, there have been several. What are we going to keep about teaching this past year? What are we going to keep in our classes? And a lot of the things that you all have been doing were part of those best practices lists. And so I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. Oh my gosh, Leslie, I'm sorry that happened to you in your T-Bell.
It's just funny, don't ever try to win or do anything good.
No, those are the kinds of T-val comments that your colleagues understand was meant as a mindfulness moment, right? Like, I don't think that that's going to ding you at all if you're trying to help your students relax and get into the class session.
I guess maybe I bring that up to maybe the takeaway is that we all may have an understanding of mindfulness as healthful, well, non-religious, non-denominational, whatever, and our students may think that yoga or mindful breathing is, I don't know, an assertion of a religious philosophy.
So one of the things we wanted to use the space for today too is to kind of have, for those of you who are familiar with our professional development series, we have teaching chats once a month where people can kind of bring in issues, questions, and those kinds of things. So if people have questions, issues, concerns about, kind of starting the fall semester, this is a place where we can kind of crowdsource that information as well. So I just kind of want to open the floor. If you have something that goes beyond the mindful returns that you'd like to talk about, I think this group would be open to that.
I'd love to hear what other people are working on this semester to like stay sane for themselves, to have, not get that empathy burnout, to be able to be flexible and listen to our students while still protecting our own hearts. Because last year was very tough. And I am dead set on being, flexible for my students and at the same time not running myself ragged. So I would love to hear what people are doing for that.
Well,
Can I share something? Oh,
sorry, I just jumped right in. This is Scott Finkeldye. I'm on the IT staff. And one of the things that we've been doing with the staff, and we have a number of student employees, is I've just been inviting people, despite the heat, to go on a short walk with me around the building, around off to across the quad. Most of us have not had offices on campus in IT, and we recently got some beautiful offices in the library, so we're able to enjoy the actual campus stuff instead of walking around a parking lot. But that alone, I believe a lot in the stress relief of walking in general and the casual conversation that comes out of a walk. And so I've been taking staff and going on walks, and that, as simple as that, has been a really nice change.
This is kind of of course synchronous with personal things too, but I came into the semester realizing that I'm really good as an adult in knowing that things may not always work out for the best, that it's not just like, oh, if you do X, Y, and Z, then life just works out and everything is happy and fine. But I'm not so good at leaning into gratitude and joy and believing in happiness, I guess just out of self-protection. But how that's relating to like being here at work and in teaching is that I am trying to thaw my frozen heart. And let's see if I can show you. I actually went to the student poster sale, and I have this poster that it's kind of hard to see, but it says, thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases from being shared. But the big takeaway is that it's right across from my desk, and the biggest word is happiness. And so like, as I'm working every day, I'm hacking myself to think more about happiness and less about clenching into this situation and just getting through. Oh my gosh, I was muted that whole time, wasn't I?
No, you weren't.
Oh, no,
We heard
no.
all of it.
We
It
heard-
was awesome. It was awesome. It was
Yeah.
good.
And we saw that your Buddhist influence, just like your T-Val said.
That's all.
I'm out. I'm a Buddhist proselytizer.
OMG. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think I'm a type A personality, and I've come to realize that this whole situation, that just it's okay to not be perfect and to not have everything figured out and to not know exactly what I'm going to be doing at every moment, that we just need to give ourselves that grace to just be is enough. Sometimes just being is enough, and caring is enough. And then we'll worry about the details, which is really what I'm always about, the details later. And learning to say no, and not apologizing, not saying no, I'm sorry, just saying no. I can't do that.
I've been encouraging people to design things that are meeting the students' needs, but that are also manageable, because we cannot sustain that. We all worked really hard last year. I mean, the way that we, pivoted, but then also we designed our courses to meet, as Dr. Love was saying, right, that hybrid expectation, right? I think there's ways that if you're doing even in person a course, you don't have to present a hybrid course if they signed up for online, but there are ways to meet students' need and let them know that you're meeting those needs by designing it in a way that's manageable to you as well. And I think that that's just been, I think we have to be careful with ourselves in when we design and when we're offering what we offer our students as well. And so just to kind of make it manageable and use the technology, but make sure that you're doing it to make in a way that's okay for you. And I think that's really crucial, because at the end of the day, if we're all exhausted, or if we all continue, well, let's just say it, we're tired, just like our students are tired, right? And so we have to recognize that and just say, okay, we're all tired. How are we going to still be energized and learn and be and want to be here, right? And so I think those are the kinds of things that we have to be honest with our students about. We have to be honest with ourselves and our colleagues about, and that will help us bring it for each other, right? So it's not just about you in isolation having to carry everybody.
So one thing that kind of inspired me to remind this group of, maybe this group doesn't need reminding, but the things that we are doing, and they should be manageable, they should be fair to us and fair to our students, but let our students know what we're doing and why. Because I think sometimes what happens is we have these things that we set up to meet them where they are and to provide these opportunities and to allow for the personalized understanding of their own success that we've talked about today. But sometimes students miss that. So I think if we say, I have this policy for these reasons, I have this assignment for this reason, I'm going to not answer emails on Saturday mornings for these reasons. I think just letting our students know that we're people, but we're people who do care about them and ourselves, is an important conversation to have explicitly. I think sometimes we just understand that students are going to get where we're coming from, but I think if we're a little bit more explicit about it, our students will appreciate it even more.
Yeah, I would like to jump in and say, I hope you guys can hear me. That's that transparency piece that I think is authentic and helps to build real community. When you explain why, when you share, some things that went wrong, but what the intentions were, when that flexibility in using technology to be able to pivot and still meet the needs of whatever situation is going on at that time. And I like, Don, you said the horizontal goal, student success. It's all of our goals, to be successful with what we're dealing with at the immediate time, because life is ever changing, especially in this space that we're in right now. So I think that transparency piece, the ultimate goal that we're all reaching for, being able to use technology and allow for technology to be successful for all of us to use, students and staff and faculty, helps to build that authentic community building, which we keep building on. I really like the happiness poster, because we all, need those things for ourselves, as well as, that modeling for other staff and faculty and students to see and to know that is important to have. So that part.
So I saw in the chat there was a reference to masks, and I absolutely agree with Melissa's point that they need to have a little bit of humor from us too, and that might be something we have to be more explicit about, because I can't see us smile when we're wearing our masks. I will take a moment to plug that earlier this week over social media, we put out some resources that actually Mick Charney had found for us from the University of Michigan, where they have a couple of pages of really specific recommendations for how to teach effectively when you're wearing a mask. And I think it's some things that many of us maybe we think we do, but there are really some good points for emphasis there. And I'm wondering if either Ashley or Noah can put some plug to that in the chat so we can find it a little bit better today. But teaching with masks is a new skill that many of us may or may not have acquired. And I think there's some definite things that we can do to improve that.
It's super hard. Teaching with masks is super hard. I mean, I don't know about you. I taught online, like I just kind of pivoted to like remote and having synchronous sessions with my students, just because I wanted to be able to express and see faces and things. And it's so hard with masks. I'm back with that, to be in person. So thank you for those tips.
That's something that I explicitly acknowledged in my class this week, because also since it's been 1,000 degrees, we've had the ACs running, and the ACs are super loud, and then everybody's muffled, and I teach language classes, so everyone's also speaking in their second language. And so it's been a major challenge, and something that I started right off the bat saying, look, this is going to be another challenging semester. It's so nice to be in person. That's really great, but we're still in the middle of this pandemic, and this is going to be a challenge for us. So I really encourage them, to have patience, to be really understanding, and let them know, like, look, there's going to be times where I just don't hear you. I don't understand you, because I don't have great hearing to begin with. And then, with everybody muffled and there being a lot of noise, I said, if I ask you to repeat something, it's not because you said it wrong. It's hard to hear. And so we're going to do our best to be patient, enunciate the best we can, and we'll figure out the best way to communicate through class.
Scott, I'm going to ask you a tech question. Do we still have those? Okay, so College of Business has these cubes that have microphones inside of them, and you can throw them across at people so they can speak, and then it amplifies through the speaker system in the classroom. Do we still have those?
The College of Business still has their cube, and the union does, but that is not something that we've centrally purchased and made available broadly. That was something College of Business and a few other places did on their own. Those are something that we've talked about, though, and I was actually going to jump in and make a work plug here, for lack of a better term, and say that this is a perfect group. We're very interested in understanding what kinds of subtle changes to the classroom would help facilitate things like interacting better with masks or communicating differently, and getting mics and managing the audio differently might be one of those pieces. So I have a connection with that company. We've looked into getting them as a bigger bulk purchase item, those tossable mics. But if anyone is interested in doing that at their department level or program level or anything, reach out to me and I'll help have that conversation. But that is not something that we've done centrally. in the general use classrooms, the 144 general use classrooms, those cameras, those polycube cameras and the little Callisto mic platforms that we put in there, those mic platforms have a really, really long cable on purpose, and they can be moved out into another part of your room if that's appropriate. So I wanted to put that option on the table. And those are only in general use classrooms though.
Well, we only have 5 more minutes. So Dawn, do you want to close us out with previews to future things, or if there's anyone else who has some last words of wisdom?
So I don't know that closing out with our stuff coming up will be the words of wisdom. So I'll give people an opportunity to provide their conclusive statements, and then I'll tell you what's coming up. So anyone who'd like to conclude?
I guess I just want to say, as I'm reflecting on this session, how useful it has been, because I think we've all been just thrown into the semester without really mindfulness and thinking. And so I just want to say that I appreciate this conversation and to continue these opportunities for us just to maybe touch base again in the middle of the semester and reflect again and find that balance and allow ourselves to give each other validation and self-care and flexibility and all these things, because I really do think that we're still going into uncharted territory. And unless we reflect and we stop and we support one another, it's going to be really, really tough. So that's all I just want to say, but thank you for providing this. Has been very useful and I think very timely.
And Rebecca, that was the segue I needed. That was amazing, because that will be something that we will do this semester. So you've come to the first event of our professional development series through the Teaching and Learning Center. I wasn't here at the beginning to introduce myself. I'm Don Saucier, for those of you who may not know me. I'm the Faculty Associate Director at the Teaching and Learning Center. And every Wednesday at noon, we'll be having these events. We'll be archiving these events. If you can't attend synchronously, we will have them out for you to watch on our TLC website. If you want invitations with reminders in the morning, email us. We'll put you on our Canvas invitation list, and then we'll send you an email that morning saying, hey, this is our event, and here is our link to that event so you can come. But it'll always be the same Zoom link that got you here. Next week, I'm going to be presenting on bringing peace and empathy to your teachings. And we talk about how we can extend some of these operationally into our classes and some of the ideas that I have. But as always, we'll be interested to hear your ideas. This idea that we can have kind of some of this connection and some of this community building, that'll be something that happens not only in all of our events, but very specifically in our teaching chats that will happen once a month. And those teaching chats, I'll probably have some ideas things I want to talk about, issues that I've had, but really those are almost like just chat periods. We can come in and all bring our ideas and our questions, and then we can crowdsource our ideas and our information. And one of the things that I love most about this series is just the ability to hear from wonderful teachers, wonderful advisors, wonderful mentors all around campus who are doing wonderful things. So this is something that I said earlier in the chat. One of the things I do is do something personally and professionally fulfilling every day. Attending these, I find a lot of personal and professional fulfillment in. So I want to thank you for all of that. And you have the opportunity to earn a professional development certificate or even be selected as a TLC fellow after attending these, if you do those post-event surveys and some reflections. And Ashley's dropping some stuff in there about you can email her for further information on all of these things. So I'm also very sensitive to people's times. We're just about at the top of the hour. So I want to thank all of you for coming and sharing wonderful things. I hope to see you next week, and I'll stick around for another minute or two if anyone has any questions or things I want to talk about. Ashley's just brought the post-event survey into the chat if anyone would like to complete that and let us know how the events go and what they want to see more of. But thank you all for all the things you do at K-State.